Hello, my name is Kashoro, and I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Today, I'm here to bring a cry for justice for the women of the DRC. As you all know, the Democratic Republic of Congo carries the heavy weight of a brutal past, a legacy that continues to haunt the nation today. During the reign of King Leopold II of Belgium, the Congo was transformed into a site of unimaginable suffering. Every person in the DRC was colonized, and to fulfill rubber quotas, Congolese people were subjected to horrific atrocities. Limbs were severed, limbs were severed, villages were burned, and women were raped as a tool of terror and control. The legacy of violence, this disgrade for human life, casts a long shadow over the present. Today, the Eastern DRC remains embroiled in a conflict that mirrors the brutality of the colonial era. Armed groups driven by the unstable global demand for minerals exploit the country's vast resources, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. So women and children bear the brunt of this violence. They are all displaced from their homes, subjected to sexual violence, and deprived of their livelihood. The story of these women are heartbreaking. I recently encountered the case of a 12-year-old girl who was gang raped in the first week of January by the terrorist M23 and their allies. Her fate remains uncertain today. Another case is about a fleeing Rwandan bombings of a woman and her husband from the camps, who was intercepted by this same rebel of 23, and they had to take this woman, cut off one of her breasts, grilled it or cooked it, and forced her husband to eat. These are not isolated incidents. They are a reflection of a systemic crisis. Women and girls are fleeing their homes, often with nothing but the clothes on their back, facing starvation, dehydration, and the constant threat of violence. And the world is watching. The international community can no longer remain silent. We have an adage that says, qui ne dit rien consent, meaning he who says nothing consents, rings true. While the armed groups in the DRC commit these atrocities, they are often supported by the very nations that condemn them. Is that not hypocrisy? The flow of minerals from the DRC often through neighboring countries such as Rwanda, Uganda, and even Kenya fuel this violence. Now, because the people who are using these minerals are getting it illegally, they do not want to stop the violence in the DRC. It's crucial to remember the silencing of those who dare to speak. For instance, one scholar and journalist named Charles Onana, in his book Holocaust Congo, bravely exposed the horrors inflicted upon the DRC people. This was last year. However, he faced persecution from both Rwanda and France for his efforts. Now, how we as scholars will be having the courage to speak up? So when the people are silencing scholars, this is not normal. So all this highlights the dangers faced by those who seek to bring attention to those atrocities. We will not be silenced no matter what. We will continue to speak out until you act. We must learn from the past. As we all know, Hitler thought to exterminate the Jewish people, but did he succeed? We must not allow the same fate to happen to the people of the DRC. Let us not repeat history, or let the history repeat itself. Now my questions to the world's leaders are, until when will this bloodshed continue in the DRC? How much longer must the people in the DRC endure the circle of the violence and extermination or exploitation of their land? Everybody knows that the land is sacred. When you have no land, there is no life. So can the world greed for minerals truly justify the mass suffering of an entire nation? Can we not find a way to extract these minerals in the DRC without resorting to violence and human rights abuse? The recent killings of the governor of Goma, Peter Chirimwami, serves as an absolute reminder that this violence is not contained within the borders of the DRC. It has destabilizing consequences for the entire great region. Women across the globe who have suffered unimaginable violence have received some form of justice or compensation. So why should the women in the DRC who have endured unspeakable acts of brutality, including the insertion of objects and bullets into their bodies in order to prevent them from bearing children, be denied the same rights as other women who have suffered the same atrocities? Today, I implore the world leaders to stop the flow of minerals from the conflict zone in the DRC, to increase support for humanitarian aid and programs that empower women and girls in the DRC, because if women are not empowered, there will not be peace and violence will always be on her head. So women must be empowered. The leaders should hold accountable Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya, and those also who are supporting them responsible for these atrocities. We ask them to prioritize the protection of civilians and restoration of peace and stability in the region that is being affected in the Democratic Republic of Congo. These women who are being killed and raped, some of them don't have the chance to face the media, to speak for themselves, or to speak for their children. What do you want them to do? You must act. The women of the DRC have endured unimaginable suffering. They deserve justice, they deserve peace, and they deserve a future free from fear and violence, just like every other woman in the world. Thank you.